welcome, everyone. What a phenomenal introduction. Thank you again. Drop the Mask Pod. Jason in the house. William, sir, welcome. Before we start, if I may, I just have a couple cleaning items, just real quick before we introduce you, sir. This
I'm
is
all yours.
William. I am for I am we right here on X. He's joining us today on Knocked Conscious, but couple things. We haven't really advertised or talked much about it, but I've decided to sunset the If by Whiskey thing. We've done it for like almost a year and a half, but it's one of those things where it's just not clicking for me. I don't know, something's happening. So I'm gonna focus a little more on the not conscious stuff, get a little bit away from the If by Whiskey stuff, a little bit. It'll be partially topic shift as well as just broader based more philosophical things about how you get manipulated versus like these specific topics and things. I think we're getting so stuck in the weeds here that we just got to take a step back, I think, because we're losing perspective in a lot of ways. So anyway, that's first. Secondly, William, welcome, sir. Before we even introduce who you are, you're going to be guest on Are You Smarter Than a Politician tomorrow night. Is it 8 p.m. Eastern?
Yes, 8 p.m. Eastern.
All right. So, William, tell us about yourself. Tell us about this opportunity, how this come about, and like I'm real excited for you. So, good luck tomorrow night. Let's plug this a little bit.
Well, I'm let's see. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a granddad or grandpa. I'm affectionately called Crazy Grandpa. I'm crazy because I've stepped away from the whole idea or concept of political parties, and I've come to a realization that I'm an agorist, which is another form of anarchy. It's more the action form. So that's why I'm crazy to the family, because of my political viewpoints. So Thanksgiving dinner's a little bit different. And then sometimes I just don't quite get along with family just because I can get along with them. It's I don't get caught up in all the daily bread and circus minutia. And my son's the same way. It's difficult sometimes to just interact with some people, to be honest with you. And it's not just for political reasons. Maybe it's just I don't get caught up in all of the wasted conversation of hello, how are you doing, and did you see that football game last night, or crazy weather we're having. It just seems like such a waste of time, and I certainly don't want to sound egotistical or elitist or anything of that nature. Just I listen to podcasts at 2x, 3x speed, just so I can swallow more information. So I get used to that.
Yeah, I do an opposite. I listen to 3 of them at a time at 1x.
Wow.
And then if I hear something in one of them, I'll pause the other. Like it's just like more like that, because I'll just get flooded, because there's no way even at 2x, 3x, it's not going to get through quick enough because I'll get distracted. So I have to like listen to like everything at once.
It's those headphones for me. I put those on and crank it up. And if it's someone that I listen to frequently, then I can definitely swallow it at 3x speed. And my thinking here is I got to get this information in my head as soon as possible. I don't want to. It's like a guilt. If I read fiction, I feel guilty that I'm not feeding my brain. And if I'm watching a movie,
but fiction has a creativity to it. It's like appreciating art. Like, what, are you not going to listen to music? You're not going to look at a painting and dissect it the way you would look at it? Before we continue, though, let's talk about this, and I think it will tie into this. So Justin would say, "Sorry to disturb. What's the topic about, sir?" The topic is about Hermeticism, or just how we perceive it. This is what I call it, because I don't think anyone can complain about it. It's called the place from which everything came. Real simple. If you can call that the Big Bang or God or whatever, but everyone kind of has a place from which everything came. So we'll start with that, and then we'll kind of go wider. But so you have these interactions with people that are shallow.
Yeah, and
you want to get deeper.
Turns me off.
Right. And it's really tough, because what's really hard is that everyone has a gift. Also, everyone has limitations. There's a large percentage of people who have certain limitations that a smaller percentage of us don't. This kind of thing we're talking about is for some reason, we don't wanna know the weather. We wanna know how many, like, um, photons shot from the sun to create the weather, how long it took there, how it hit the ionosphere, you know what I mean? Like, we wanna know so much about it than just like, "Oh, yeah, it's hot out."
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So anyway, and I think that plays a little bit to, like, how you are and why you came to this kind of Hermeticism as a thought process. So,
Yeah.
you know, what
It's and I'm
how did
early in that journey for Hermeticism, only just because we've talked about this offline. I've had dreams of people passing, and they actually passed during that evening. And I had dreams of my father's illness when I was like a teenager and on a camping trip 100 miles away, and came home and knew that my father had had a grand mal seizure from his brain tumor, these kinds of things. And I've always
when did that start happen? I mean, you say always, but, like, is this your conscious thing, or did you have an event prior to you didn't and after, or did you just kinda notice you always had this kind of generally?
I the earliest I can remember, and I don't have an explanation for any of these, so I'm anxious to have this conversation and share some of this. The earliest I remember is being the child who would have night terrors and wake up pulling posters off the wall, and my parents couldn't wake me up, and I'd have night terrors, and there was this um, little fairy that lived in my closet, and I called her Pixie Dust. I don't know where. And I was 4 or 5 years old. And one day she appeared to me, and she would come to me at different times, or it was in my head, in my brain. And she
That doesn't mean
said,
she didn't come to you.
yeah,
It
it
doesn't mean
just
she didn't come
he
to you,
just
right?
said,
Like,
you don't fear your dreams anymore. There's nothing that's going to bother you or hurt you or harm you, and just have no fear of your dreams. And I remember that conversation with her. And even though my my parents and my older brothers, I'm the youngest, but I'm an only child with two older brothers, just because they're 11 and 13 years older than me. So I from third grade on, I lived as an only child. So that's the
right.
earliest
And
memory. And
you're late, like, early Gen Xer, like, one of the
last
earlier?
year of the boomers, some people call us
Last year of the boomers,
drunk.
so you were kinda latchkey-ish, kinda left on your own
Yes,
devices? I mean,
yes.
so there was that transitional into, because Gen X, really, that is a generation where literally look, this my whole philosophy on what happened to our country is literally the Gen Xers got ignored. They then overcompensated and hovered over their children and created this mess of children that,
Mm.
like, just do not know how to, like, resolve the world because we wouldn't let them as Gen Xers
And
because
then
of
add the
how we
social
were
media. Yeah.
because of how we were so neglected in that way. We're talking millennials, right? And then now that's coming to the alphas or the millennials kids, right? So, like, we're it's kind of an interesting thing in the back and forth. But anyway, please continue to that. So
So
you
I
were kind of an only child here in a way,
right,
because you had way older kids,
right.
older brothers by 10, about double digit years here, and you had
Sure.
this pixie dust character visit you. Now, I don't want to say character, but pixie dust energy, whatever, this sprite or
Mhm.
whatnot, visit you. Now, how would you describe, would just like the Peter Pan
Yeah,
Tinkerbellish kind of thing? I
kind
mean,
of like
because,
that.
like,
Well,
remember, we perceive things in our head too.
yeah.
It's my opinion that the information is not just given to us or sent to us. Sometimes it's sent with our perception. Like, you
Mhm.
might be talking about. Here's an example. I remember going on a first date with my last girlfriend a long time ago. And I
Mhm.
remember on the first date talking about if we're gonna have kids, like kids' names, just something just goofy. And she goes, "You'll never guess what I'd name my kid." And I'm a pilot. And I got the leather jacket and the bomber jacket, and I got Amelia Earhart. I'm like, Amelia, and she, like, went white. She went ghost white, and she's like, how did you know? And she got it from Amelia Bedelia. But I wouldn't have understood Amelia Bedelia I only understood Amelia Earhart. How would I have gotten that? You know what I'm saying? How
Right.
it's how it also comes to us through our own filter to
Right.
understand. So how did this character how did this energy
Yeah.
appear to you?
It's through the lens of a 4 or 5 year old, right? And so we remember, the Disney before Disney movies start and pixie dust, or the flying fairy, waves a wand and flies over the castle. I guess something like that. But it was more of a warm guide, if you will. She was she she was just there just to let me know that she was there, and that
So
and
was it
I
did
felt
she
good.
talk? Did she talk or
That's
did you
the
just hear her?
I
Like
only
you
heard
probably
her.
just heard her, right? Like you heard her. It doesn't mean she was doesn't mean you saw her necessarily talking to you like we would in a personification kind of
Right.
way. You just heard her,
Right.
I guess, would be the okay.
And and
And she
so
gave you information? Like how what kind of information type stuff throughout your childhood would you say? You said your
um
dad was when you were gone.
right when
And
she kind of disappeared, I don't know, 6 or 7. And I think the last time I really remember her talking to me was, or I should say, hearing her voice was just that there's nothing to fear in dreams anymore. They're just dreams. Don't worry about it. And it was like peace. And what was interesting is my brother, the middle brother, his room was directly underneath mine. It was a 2-story house. And if I would have a nightmare and wake up and I was scared, I would go to the vent and I'd yell down, Ray, Ray. And he would run upstairs to me because his vent was right over his
right,
bed, and my vent was
right.
right next to my bed. Um, and and she just said, "You don't need to call for your brother anymore. Everything is fine." And I don't know. I was always kind of like, "Hey, maybe I'm psychic or ESP or something like that." But as I got older, less and less of those things would happen. Everyone has deja vu, and there's scientific explanations for these things.
I
But
think that's every child though, William, if I may. So let's be on like just like language, culture, we unlearn things. At 2 years old is where we actually have the most neurons firing, literally, and it's all downhill from there because we start trimming things that don't require us to live in the way this world is set up, right? Remember, the world is not evolved to us. We've evolved to it. Like, let's not kid ourselves. I don't. Let's not. Well, no one put this whatever. Like you understand what I'm saying. So
absolutely,
it's an interesting
absolutely.
so what happens is these invisible friends you have when you're growing up or whatever. It's like those are real, ladies and gentlemen, and you teach your children to no longer believe in them. I'm telling you, those things are real, and it's the plasticity of the mind, the openness that allows way more stuff to be taken in at a way younger age. And that's why everything can be learned much more, is because so much more is going on
Right.
active as you're learning.
And
Anyway.
now my father, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he had when I was 13, my mom woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "Come help your father. He's having a seizure, and we got to get him to the hospital." And I remember helping him get dressed, and he's shaking. It was a grand mal seizure, and that happened when I was at 13, and that of course changed my life. My brothers had moved out again when I was in 3rd grade. I was home alone as a kid, home alone. So, but from as teenage years, my father with his brain tumor, they gave him 6 months to live, and but he kept going for 5 years. That's a whole nother story. And that so he would have these seizures, and when he have a seizure, if it was a very bad seizure, he would lose his ability to walk, and he'd have to retrain himself to walk. So his life as a teenager was consistently in a wheelchair, to a walker, to a cane. Maybe he'd have a seizure, he'd go back to a walker. He would build his way back up to no cane. He'd have another grand mal seizure, and he'd be back to a wheelchair, and he'd have to teach himself how to walk all over again. So I think I was probably 14 or 15, and I was on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts 100 miles away. And I remember waking up Saturday night in the middle of the night in my sleeping bag and seeing that my father had a seizure. No idea what time of the night it was. That Sunday, when we get home Sunday afternoon, I jump out of the pickup. Kids rode in the back of the pickup back then. It was safe. The Boy Scout. And I just grabbed my pack and I run inside and I said,
my car seat was a blanket in the back of a Ford Pinto station wagon. You're welcome. A blanket. That was my car seat, just so you know. Ford Pinto. Anyway, go ahead, please.
And
so you rush home, you jump out of the truck.
Yeah, I run into the house. I said, "How's Dad? Did Dad have a seizure?" And my mom said, "Yes, he did. How did you know?" I said, "I dreamt it." And I explained the dream, and sure enough, that's exactly what had happened. And it was so now my father and I would butt heads because he would go down to the VA in Phoenix, Arizona. I was a kid, grew up in Flagstaff, and he would go down to the VA.
I know exactly where it's at. Yeah,
3 months, 6 months, going through the whole process of physical therapy or cancer treatments for his brain.
Was it a military injury or was it a tumor or was he just getting health care through the VA because he was ex-military?
Yeah, he was prior service, but he was also he worked at Sandia Corporation. He worked in Los Alamos Labs. He was private contractor, I put air quotes, for his RCA. He had a top clearance. I was born in Alaska. He would fly to all the different radar sites before NORAD was, but he was involved in the atom bomb and hydrogen bomb testing. He was involved in radar early, during World War II was when radar was developed, and he was.
We know how he got a tumor, is what you're telling me.
We knew that he was exposed to way too much radiation, and they wore a badge, and they'd say, "Go home, get a good shower. We'll see you in the morning." I know it's only 10:30, but you had enough radiation for the day. So we figured that's where he came home hot a lot, and as they called it, and that's probably the origin for his brain tumor.
I'm sorry.
So it was in service of the country. So he died a month before my 18th birthday, and but he and I collided a lot because I was the man of the house as a teenager. I was the know-it-all teenager, but I was the man of the house because he would be gone for 3 months, 6 months at the hospital, and back and forth. And he was agnostic all his life. And 2 weeks before his big seizure at age 13, when he had that, he converted to Mormonism. And I was brought up Lutheran because my mom would take me to church every week, and Lutheran church and Lutheran school, all that kind of thing, and in public school, of course, too. But anyway, so we all converted to, LDS, Latter-day Saints. Church.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yes. And I even did the whole mission thing.
You're in Arizona, so I know the Mormons well. We're inundated here.
But
it's funny. It's funny because we talk about that as an institution, man. If I may, 99.9% of Mormons I meet to a T are just the kindest, gentlest human beings I've ever met on planet Earth, and the group are just such a atrocity. Like, it's just disgusting. It's really weird how
the cultish
these institutions weaponize your compassion for their gains. And that's really the suicidal empathy. It's funny that like Gad Saad or somebody coined that suicidal empathy. I've always said they're weaponizing your compassion against you. Suicidal empathy is a great term for that, I guess.
Yeah, it shrinks it down.
It just makes it much like a thing, but that is exactly what they do. Ladies and gentlemen, they tell you that crime's going up, so they have to spend more on police. But that's just more to hold you down. So they got to add laws. Well, if the crime's up, we just got to add more laws for people to get criminalized for. But what is that? So we go through all these things. So I apologize. I go for tangents.
No,
this show should have been called Tangents. Jimmy wrote this. Edgar Casey, phenomenal. Perfect. Edgar Casey. You can look this up, Jimmy. Look up a gentleman, Lowell, Lowell K. Smith. I think he wrote a book called Growing Up Psychic. He was a fellow at the Edgar Cayce Center, and I had many experiences with him. So I can share, actually, I had some psychic crazy stuff. So we'll talk about that. And then this part 2, yes, nuclear warheads did not directly give the cancer. Cheeseburgers and sugar for sure.
Sure.
But goddamn, are those cheeseburgers good, man? They're really delicious. So,
anyway, long story short,
I know we went tangent-y there. So
yeah, I wasn't one. I always wanted to learn how to do lucid dreaming, and I had a person. I worked with a large company, and went up the chain in management with that large company. It's a Fortune 500, and one of the kind of people that had been promoted before I was gotten kind of close to, and I remember his name was Martin, and he used to say if he had a real
like Martin the Martian, like I Love Martin.
Yeah,
my favorite Martian or whatever, like with Ray Walston, Mr. Hand. You knew Mr. Hand? No, I'm just kidding.
He would have a tough challenge at work, and he would just everything, heart and soul and body and everything mental. He would just pile into that problem to try to solve, and to a point where he wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking, he wasn't and not that he was going into some kind of trance, but when he would dream, he would then be able to have a lucid dream and figure out the solution that way. And when he'd wake up maybe at 3 a.m. and have the solution. And next thing you know, he's at the office figuring it out, working it out. And I'd show up at 7 a.m. and 4 a.m, and there it was. He'd worked it out through lucid dreaming. So I was really captivated by that idea. So I always been conscious of my dreams just because of my history, and then thinking, wow, now I could use this as a tool. And I thought that was fascinating. So then it really reminded me, in college, you take things like creative writing, and I really dug deep down into that and thinking, where are those ideas and these thoughts coming from? How did I come up with this poem? It didn't feel like it was me, but it was my.
You didn't.
It was, I did it, or was it me? Did I tap into some kind of conscious being that was, working through me to pen this poem? And it was, and so I've always had this idea that even though agnostic now, after my stint with Mormonism and going down that road of philosophy and various religions and living overseas and being exposed to various religions, I realized that there may or may not be some kind of deity or oneness or conscious that we tap into through creative endeavors, or we see things in our dreams. And recently, a good family friend was diagnosed with cancer, and I had dreamt and it happened to be on Halloween evening, that he had passed. His name was Corey. And in my dream, I was like in some kind of dark swamp, is how I can explain it. And across the swamp was Corey, and he was looking over his shoulder, and he was waving at me, and he was talking to me, but his lips weren't moving. I could just hear it. And he was just saying, everything's good. Goodbye. See ya. I can't explain the words. I say goodbye.
Right, because it's like a feeling. It's like they're talking to you in feeling. They talk to you in emotion, and it's really hard to really articulate in a language some of the experiences that you might come across.
And he was leaving, I guess, this dark, ugly, dreary swamp of where we are all at, is the feeling I got. And it hit me hard, and I woke up, and later that day, I finally had the courage to tell my wife. I said, I had a dream that Corey had passed. They'd said goodbye to me last night. And she says, what? And her first reaction was, he must have passed. He must have died. And of course, she called her husband, and yes, in fact, he died that night, that evening. And I don't know. I can't explain it. Now, yes, in fact, okay, close friend, not really close, lives hundreds of miles away from us. We would get together a few times a year, this kind of thing. And so, and I can't explain it. What now? Was it because I knew he was ill and he had a terminal illness that it was just on my forethoughts, that it was in my mind that this gentleman was going to pass? It just so happened on Halloween.
I think some of them are like that. I do think some of them are like that. Like, you've got pattern recognition. Obviously, there's got to be a superseding, like, it's kind of like the moon. Like, I haven't talked to my friend in 4 months. I'm thinking about him today and he calls. Some of that is like cyclical almost, you know what I mean? Unconscious kind of thing. But there also is the other, you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
the problem is, it's not all this. It's not none of that. It's not all of that, none of that. It's probably a mix. And that's what makes it really confusing, is when it is genuine, how you separate that from one of the ones that's more like it's been 3 months and there's a little clock in my head, right? Kind of thing.
And so that just happens to be one of the dreams that I remember well and will always stick with me, not because the emotions of, in fact, that it took place or that I lost a good friend. It is also because it had a different meaning. That the meaning was, we're all in this ugly, dreary swamp world, the last place we'd want to be. And I apologize for people who live in this swamp.
Well, thank goodness Trump's president. He's going to drain it.
God,
we're okay.
Don't get me started. Anyway, yeah. So I don't, that we live in an ugly world and we're caught up in this swamp, in this dreary, gray, horrible place. Not that it's hell. It's not that. Hell would be worse. And that, he was moving on. He was leaving this existence, and there was a little bit of light there where he was going. I could tell that where he was, there was more, it was brighter, and he was going to be fine. So maybe that's why it also impressed upon me to think that this is a temporary location, and somehow we're all interconnected. It's either, this goes into the principles of, one mind, or, my mind. Hermeticism, it's one of its principles, that we're all interconnected. And by the way, your podcast with Bobby Azarian was amazing. I'm glad.
Okay, you got a chance to listen to it?
Yeah, and I like the idea that it's all chaos, and maybe we can find some truths in all the various religions. And I can relate to that, having been exposed to so many being overseas, and they have a common thread,
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, William. But let me pull this up, if I may, really quickly. The quantum entanglement, Jimmy, that is how I would explain my psychic phenomenon that I get. I'm precognitive. I'm psychic. I have weird stuff happen. If I may, let me share a story with about our friend Terry.
Yeah.
I won't. Yeah. So I remember mentioning this psychic thing, and I remember Terry going, "What am I thinking of right now?" And I'm like, "God damn it, that's not how it fucking works." So it was literally like 20 minutes later, I got like a picture of a red fruit in my head, and I literally go in our group chat and like, "Terry, I'm getting red fruit. I don't know. That's what I'm getting in my head from you. I'm because I had stopped. It's like you have to get out of the consciousness. Like, when you think about it, it's not gonna come to you. So I kind of had to back off, right? So I had to like not think about it, and then it popped in my head. She goes, "Strawberry shortcake." And I'm like, "Okay, is that good enough?" She goes, "No, what am I thinking of now?" And I'm like, "That's not how it fucking works." It's so hard to explain. Like, you don't get it. You don't reach for it. It comes to you. But anyway, that's all.
Like the development of a poem or a work of art or something. People with music.
So this is the thing. This is the thing. It's my opinion that base reality 0 did not have consciousness involved with it. It was pure whatever this thing, right? The first one, I don't know how to explain it. I can't tell you what's before that. I'm just going to tell you what this is. Then creatures act as the world universe is stabilized, civilizations evolved, creatures evolved, smaller creatures have smaller consciousness, larger creatures gain more. Then there's a point where a certain level of consciousness connects beings to each other.
Okay.
And then that hits a tipping point. I don't know what that is. Of those number of people who connect that way, create a global consciousness, which then that consciousness will then interact with other civilizations who've achieved this same global consciousness. And then that tipping point will be a universal consciousness, which then gives rise to the new universe, which has consciousness as a field or a foundation embedded in it. And we're not on reality 1.0. This is where I think it's simulation and whatnot. We're like reality, 15, 16, whatever it is. But this has happened then time and time again, in my opinion. And then that's when this consciousness energy then feeds back into the system as a self-organizing system. It evolves just like anything else. And if you look at the universe, you see the fractals like you do in nature. Just, you know what I mean? It's an interesting thing. So
okay, so let me. Could it also be described as simulation? Like we're all in a simulation. We hear this often. Simulation.
That's what it would be. Is that the non-base reality is a simulation of sorts already, because it's created by the consciousnesses of the previous reality that gave rise to it.
Interesting.
I know and this is only from my experience. Remember, my experiences are like I'm a star seed and all this other stuff. So like it makes sense that Syrians and Palladians and whatever would not want us to destroy ourselves.
Right.
They'd want us to reach a global consciousness to mix with their global consciousness, because at some point we'll get enough global consciousnesses to have the universe
which
reach another level.
Bleeds over to what Bobby Azarian was talking about in your podcast.
Yeah.
And that meshes well with that.
And it's not dissimilar from what you're saying though either, because it still is one, but we created it the first time, and then it becomes a loop, like a self-organizing.
It certainly would explain reincarnation and these kinds of things. Now, my father also had a near-death experience in NDE, and it so happens that one of my childhood friends, his father was a professor at Northern Arizona University, Professor Whittison. And he wrote a book.
Lumberjacks.
Yes. He wrote a book on near-death experiences, or a couple of different books. He's since passed, but he had interviewed my father about my father's NDE, and he was also a Mormon. My father went and he was invited to lecture in one of his classes, I think twice. But he was fascinated with NDEs, and he felt that they also help support his belief in the church for whatever reason. We don't need to go there, but I did find
the church is the institutionalization of your faith. So like, if you just want to go back to his faith, I'm fine with that, in his belief system and whatever, but like his worldview, fine. It's just that institutionalization part where we get where I really think that where it gets corrupted. I mean, that's the only place where it would be. The direct connection would not have any corruption to it. It's pure. You know what I mean? If you have a
I mean, faith really answers the unanswerable questions. It's filling that hole that it's trying to solve for X, and it's in its formula, and it probably isn't getting it right in most faiths. But we have that need. We need to know that what is the value of X. It's part of our problem solving that is required in most of our brains, right? So anyway, Professor Whittison, and I went down that path of NDEs and it's just that's fascinating but it's also culturally related. The Christian culture will have NDEs that match up with the Christian culture. Hindu will have an NDE that matches that culture, or faith. And so, for me, it still is a question. Well, were these something that fired off while the brain was, in idle mode, or had passed as we had defined death, and then was reanimated? I don't know. However, I do think that they're real. There's too much solid documentation of that. Just like you talked about children and their ESP levels. Identical to that is young children who talk about their previous life. And as we get older, we fill our minds and our brains with all kinds of information and data and all of that other abilities, maybe in touching or experiencing or remembering that other realm, seems to get lost. But
it atrophies. Like I said, it doesn't provide utility in this physical world.
Yes.
This ethereal stuff doesn't provide utility the way we're constructed. So it does make sense that it wouldn't work that way, right? Like it just makes absolute sense. Actually, it kind of confirms it.
Sure. And for me, I am not a spiritual person at all. I've way too deep into the geopolitical realm, and there's music. If I listen to music, I don't want to hear words or lyrics. I need to listen to more music. I do believe it does soothe me. But I have this quest for what's going on in the world. Why? Who said what and why? What's their motive here? And how can we counter it? And this is how I guess my brain works. And my son certainly feels that and goes through, his IQ is much higher than mine. And, he struggles through life because he's just got too many thoughts firing off at the same time. You would think of someone with that level of intelligence would sail through life very easily. Money would be no problem. It's just the opposite.
Paradox. There's such a paradox to intelligence because the biggest one is you don't trust yourself because there's a better answer out there. And you have to find it. And that's it. That's just literally the reason you can't step forward is because there's a better way. And until you find that better way, you can't. And it's like this weird loop of it's debilitating. Absolutely debilitating. It's crippling at times.
And it breaks my heart, and other people just can't see it. Well, why is he struggling? I don't understand. He's so smart. And then of course, then that information gets back to him. And it's like, what's wrong with me? But there's nothing wrong with it. He already knows it's his brain going moving so fast and thinking in so many different levels. And having a conversation with him, when you ask him a question, there's this pause. He asks the question back to you, and then there's a pause, and then he starts to fill in the answers. And then he'll hit, ADHD kicks in, and it's like, all right, what was I talking about? Because he's already on some other thought, and he's already then now explaining that other thought. And it's so above you that when we will sit on the phone and we'll talk for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and we'll talk about everything under the sun, mostly science and mostly politics. But those are moments I cherish just because I get to have a conversation with someone who understands me. I understand him. There's no barriers. There's no walls. And we can understand each other without, it's unconditional love is in play here, and you want that for everybody. Once you feel that and have that emotion and that intellectual connection, you really want everyone to feel that. And I that's where it goes back to the idea of one mind, one universal mind that we're tapping into. And that has got me to the point where, well, okay, that part of my brain that has now calcified, maybe I need to wake it up and give it some exercise and go down this rabbit hole of Hermeticism, sprinkle a little stoic philosophy.
Let me give you an example of an experience that may kind of line up with what you're saying. So I was on a podcast, UFO Chronicles podcast, I think it was. I don't know if I ever shared that one with you, where I actually share my NDE and all the other. Yeah, that one's called the UFO Chronicles podcast. I think Not Conscious is episode like 318. Just you type of UFO Chronicles, Not Conscious.
Maybe I did
you'll
watch
see
that.
it.
Maybe that was one.
But basically, yeah. So basically, if you're talking this oneness that you're talking about, when I did a past life regression, and the previous iteration to whatever this iteration is, from what it felt like the one before this. I don't know. It's to your point. It's like to articulate the experiences are very challenging because you can get like kind of before and after. You're not getting dates. You're not getting specifics. You're getting very ethereal. So anyway, pitch black, complete pitch black. And I'm talking to a guide and she says, "Where are you?" And I go, "What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm a non-corporeal purple mist. And I am intermixed with another non-corporeal purple mist. I'm intermixed." And she's like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "I'm being pulled away from this other thing that I was with." And she goes, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "They're making me. They're making me." And I had like one tear, literally just with a single tear, like I'm being pulled away from pure bliss. Like I can't even express. It's not silence. Like it's harmony. It's harmony. Like it's harmony. It's not lack of, and it's not dissonance. It's just, it is connection. Is really what I don't know what connection is. So weird story about that. You've heard of twin flames before, I'm sure. I had met a woman that I thought might have been that, or, had, the stupid signs you go through, like when you're looking through this stuff. Anyway, my car accident when I had my NDE was June 21st, 1988. Her birth date was June 28th, 1988, a week after. And what I will tell you is I felt leaving this other thing that was my other thing.
Wow.
And then I felt like I in a weird way, met that other thing in this iteration. And to find out that when I came here, if I'm following my thoughts, right? If I came here and then she's here a week later, that's a little fucking weird. You know what I mean? That's a little fucking weird. And we just ships in the night. Well, we're not like, we don't talk or anything, but we just, just had to be like, "Oh, cool. You're still good. All right. I'll see you next life." You know what I mean? Kind of like, it was kind of like that kind of thing, Wow. So it's interesting how like we perceive that at times too. So you have this pixie character. Now, were you ever visited by a dark character anytime in your adulthood, the shadow figure, nothing came to you? Just dreams. Okay.
The only thing I can explain as far as a dark character is we were living in New Jersey at the time during the pixie dust. Summer between second grade, third grade, we moved to Flagstaff. And sometime after that, I remember, I don't know, maybe fourth, fifth grade, I would have these dreams, and I've had them since. I've had them as recent as maybe 5-10 years ago, and I can't explain it, but Imagine if everything could turn into a bubble. All right. Your computer screen, the light, the picture on the wall, a book on the bookshelf, and everything just started to swell and overcome your space where you're at.
Okay.
And it's not a feeling of claustrophobia. It's more of a feeling of the weight of everything pushing on you. If that
Pressure.
Yeah, pressure.
Like they get like a magnetic, like pushing two magnets of opposing against each other, like that pressure.
Yeah, that's a great
Kind of
analogy. But yet it's physical that can be seen.
Right.
And anything and everything you look at. So while you're in this dream, that starts to happen. And while you're waking up, you're starting to open your eyes and see the things in your room. And there are also a bubble that's pushing on you. And a few times, my parents had heard me in my room, and I had these. I loved the Indianapolis 500. I would watch it on TV with my father. My father loved it, and I would have posters on my wall just as a kid, of maybe AJ Foyt's car or one of Bobby Unser was one of my favorites.
Rick Mears was my guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
Rick
I would have these
guy.
were as a kid, man, I loved baseball, but this poster on my wall was like an idol, a deity or something. And I woke up tearing those posters off my wall and ripping them up. And when my parents woke me up and finally I'm awake and I'm seeing what I did to these posters, not knowing what those posters were, but it was that feeling of all of this pressure. So I can't explain that. But that is probably the only dream that I could say that while it doesn't seem dark or demonic in any way, it is extremely.
That was overwhelming. I think it sounds like you were overwhelmed by the experience in some way.
Yes.
It didn't sound overly negative. It just sounds powerful, concentrated.
And I'm not a claustrophobic person. I've done spelunking, in caves.
Okay, yeah. So that pressure is a different kind of pressure you were.
Yeah. So
Hermeticism, like let's get into this. What is your thought? What is your thought? So you're thinking, how is it one? Like, how is it? Is it a field? Is it because they're thoughts, right? Do the neurons create the consciousness? Or is consciousness the thing that creates the other stuff for us, right? Like we're starting to look at it from both sides of that now, through science.
I get the impression that it, science would tell you the Big Bang, or there was one point and then it all came to be. And I get more of it, and I'm so new and young into this idea, this thought, this way of thinking, just because I'm looking for answers like everybody else does. And again, I'm currently sitting on the fence. I'm agnostic, but there's these things around me that just point to we're all connected in some way. And so one mind really seems to be an explanation. And while the human mind finds it difficult to understand the idea that something has always been, I have been. Have you been there? Been there? No, that something has always existed and will always exist. To me, makes more sense. And for us to maybe come into this physical realm where we're at right now, to feel and have experiences of touch, of laughter, belly laughter, of sadness, of tears, of feeling full or satisfied from a good meal, or feeling, having food poisoning and going through all of those things. That's ugly. But that's why we're possibly here. And the idea that if you wrong somebody, you're hurting them, but you're also hurting yourself, even though you don't realize it at this point. But after your death, you're going to feel everything that they felt. and you're going to come back and relive it again, maybe, or live another existence, maybe till you get it right. I don't know. See, that sounds like more like
So you have a little karmic reliving, teaching. This whole thing's to live. So, say a soul. Let's just use soul. Soul is a 0 when it starts, right? The objective is to make it 100. When it hits 100, it goes off to the heaven. Let's just say at 100, it goes to heaven. But 100 means it's learned everything it needs to learn. It's gone through all its paces, right, or whatever. Experience what it's had to, right?
It's too simplistic. It's way too simplistic. I'm more.
I know that's a hard way to say that, but you know,
there is no separation. I would be more along the lines. There is no separation of the soul.
See, I see it as more of an evolutionary thing where we are each energy is a feedback loop into the system, so that if we wrong, we actually hurt the system. To your point, it's like hurting ourselves, but it's like really actually it's making evolution go the wrong way, steer in a direction it shouldn't, if that makes sense. So it could, and that would be spiritually or energetically, whether that's dark forces, right? It's like if you knowingly do bad things, you're putting out bad energies, right? So those could accumulate over time, and that could actually evolve, right? Versus going this way, it could go that way, right? So that's how I'm kind of starting to perceive it, is like we are a feedback loop. So it's very similar to your perception of I'm hurting myself, but I look at it more like of we are the feedback loop individually, and then as we feed it back, the major part can steer the big ship into how future evolution of the universe really happens or whatnot in that way.
Many of us have experienced too, you know, and for a little while I got into this whole manifestation. Maybe you can manifest things, and you know, going to test it out, and kind of it's like, no, I need some more science to back this up. But I can
speak to manifestation though, but go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. And I remember a time I was trying to save a company. It's one of the things I used to do, which is to save jobs and tell the owner it's worth saving or not worth saving. And we believe this particular company was worth saving. And I took it over to manage the operations and handle the financials and everything. And it was extreme amount of stress. And at the time, I think this particular company from the ownership was one of their, it was an umbrella of companies. And one company had about 54 employees, and I was working hard to save their jobs, and extremely stressful with things that were going on at home. And in my head, I said, you know what? I'm going to try to remember a childhood friend. And I put it on my calendar every day. Think of this friend. And I look at the phone and see if he was going to call me or something. And I thought, I'm going to do this for 30 days. And I think I was about 3 weeks in, and I got this strange phone number, and I am literally trying to put out fires. It's like, I don't know, 6:35 in the late afternoon. I was supposed to be at home at 5 for an event for my son, and I'm an hour and a half late. And I get this strange phone call, and who is it? It's that friend that I'd been put on my calendar to see if manifesting someone who I hadn't talked to in probably 20 years. That person would call me or find me some way, somehow. I didn't do anything physical to reach out to them. I didn't tell anybody else this. And he called.
But you did something, and I can speak to that. And I think that's what this is. Let us use this.
And then I blew him off.
Right. Of course. And now you hate yourself forever. No, consciousness is a current. Okay. When we talk about law of attraction, do you think you actually get people attracted to you? Do you really think that law of attraction works where you go, now I'm attractive? You know what I mean? Like, that's not how the law. No, you as the leaf have to align yourself with the current that is the flow of whatever the attraction that majority of people get. Yes. So you can get along the relationship consciousness current. You can get on the just hooking up consciousness current. You can get on all the. So to your point, the manifestation is you aligning with the current you seek, not you creating it. Like, you know what I mean? So when you align with it, then it comes, because that's what the manifestation is, but it's not you creating. You're the one who has to, does it sound familiar? Surrender. Oh my gosh, let's use a religious term. You have
See,
to
that's
literally
hard.
give up.
That's so hard for
Right.
me because
But
I'm
you understand that that's
analytical.
actually when that happens, is when you do surrender, is when those epiphanies really happen. And
Shout out
happy
to
birthday, Derek, by the way.
Oh yeah, happy birthday.
Happy 66. Happy birthday, Derek. And gay pornos apparently exist for
4
this
years.
person.
He's got 4 years on.
And it is a vibe for sure. So
yeah. So shout out to Dino Austin. That was the person.
Okay, cool. Dino. Nice.
Dino Austin.
So this is, and that's what it is. And it's like, I've always found is like, I used to think you can make, I'll just smash that square peg into the round hole. But it's really, you have to, and then when that happens, it's like the current then radiates off of you. It's almost like bouncing off of you. Then when you enter a room and you're aligned with the current, you've had days where you walk into a room and everyone just stops and you're like, how am I, why is everybody looking at me today? Like, how am I so attractive or something? Like, but there's something that happened, and it's unconscious, subconscious, whatever, but it's something that you may have done yourself to align, not to create per se. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. But that doesn't mean you can't create either. I mean,
yeah. So there's got to be something there. Again, my pendulum sways. There is a God. There is no God. You know.
Well, I mean, God's
all this oneness. We're all connected. It's one mind. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Oh, nice. Look at that. Going to first religious concert tomorrow night. Nice. What kind of is it? Christian, Catholic? Like, is it a specific sect? I'm curious what that is, Derek. That'd be cool. Religious music, by the way, is music's a great way to get you into that zone. To your point, you talk about music. I mean, how do you surrender? Is like, let someone else take over. Let them have the music is the idea at the time, so you don't have to think when you're just enjoying, right?
Right.
So you can actually get into like a weird zone, and then stuff comes to you in those moments when you're not actively looking, you know what I mean? Actively turning on every sense to look for things. It's very interesting. So what about has your son exhibited any of these types of things as well? Does he see things or experience the way you do? Because obviously he has his own challenges, but he obviously has his own gifts as well.
Sure. No, he's far more analytical than I am. Let's put it another way. He would like to have a natural burial because this is the closest he can come to it. He would like to have a natural burial where you know what a natural burial is. There is no embalming. There's nothing done with the body. It's extremely difficult to have done now in the U.S. And to say,
I think it's the laws and regulations don't allow it anymore.
Right. And to be buried, say under a tree, because your DNA eventually will break down and be a part of whatever organisms intertwines with, maybe 100, 1,000 years from now. And that's how he sees his
legacy,
molecular structure becoming one with nature.
Is molecular legacy is what we'll call it.
And this brings up another point. I apologize to the audience. I just don't want to dox myself.
No, not at all. We're not.
My last name is extremely rare. We're dying. Our last name is dying. There's at one point was 126 people in this world with my last name. And when I turned 60, my son whispered to me and said, "Dad, do you realize that almost 20% of the family is right here in this room in the world?" So for him, we I used to say our last name is so rare and so unique. It's the greatest gift I could give to you, which means integrity and all these kinds of things. Just like most fathers try to
It is
Their
like
father.
it's legacy. Yeah, I totally
Yeah,
get it.
legacy. Don't spread your seed. Be careful where you spread your seed. These kinds of things. But in all seriousness, we both kind of realize that, I have uh, my oldest brother has two sons, and they each had daughters. My other brother couldn't father children, and I have one child, one male, biologically, who is from my first marriage. There you go. First time I'm saying this online publicly. And he was an only child, and he hasn't married yet, and he doesn't have any offspring. And he was an only child for my last name. So, on my family, from my mother and my father's side of the point, there's like 7 people living with my family. And that's my mother's side and my father's side. So there's very few people that, well, I shouldn't count my nephew, my 2 nephews and nieces. But anyway, long story short, they're children. So I have an extremely small family, and on my father's side, that last name is extremely rare. So we realized that we're more along the lines of the last of the Mohicans, to put it to that phrase, that the name will eventually die. And my mother's maiden name, all of that family, it was all girls, and that name has now passed. And so it's very unique.
So I'm curious the way you perceive the world.
Uh-huh.
Now I can imagine the familial pressures that created this thing, but remember I always talk about this. A true friend stabs you in the front. I'm going to hold up a mirror for a second, if I may, but
Sure.
how does that not conflict with your general view of the world? Is like legacy to you from my viewpoint of how I perceive you would be so unimportant, but I could see it being driven in you growing up, but I don't see it as your core self, if that makes sense.
That's what my statement of last of the Mohicans statement kind of really means, is that it's come to a reality that that last name will eventually die.
Right.
It won't then. But see, that's also cultural, because the DNA will continue to live on, as my son and I talk about. But the name will not.
Right. And that's my question is what's the interest in the ego connection to the name? Not not for you, because I don't see you doing that by any means. But there is a pride. Like my dad came from Germany, and my mom's family escaped East Germany, and we don't have many family. I've got a brother who has 1 son, 3 daughters. I have no children. That's all we have from my dad's side. And he crossed an ocean to come here at 19. So it's like, to your point, I remember growing up feeling that I got to continue that because of what he put himself through to get there. If that makes sense. And that's my own ego that I had to kind of overcome for me. And that's ego, not good or bad. It's not to put a judgment on it, but it is.
Yeah. My father was an only child too. So, yeah, I don't know. For a while, I think, when I was trying to make it in this world, as far as chasing the almighty dollar and status and that kind of thing, and my name is difficult to spell. It had its challenges, but its uniqueness also made it stand out. So I was always driven to, like, well, make sure you don't spit on our name. Hold it in reverence and in all your dealings, and that worked well for me, because at one point I worked for a company that they were just essentially a den of thieves with each other, not with the customer base, but they were fighting with each other for more shares in the company, and backstabbing and ugly thievery in this. We went from a $36 million company to a $250 million company in just a few short years. So explosive growth. And I was one of the vice presidents.
You don't know, if you don't know how to handle that.
Yeah,
you really mismanaged that greatly.
And it was on the border of Mexico. Most of our clients were in Mexico. So we would source product in the US and around the world and sell it in Mexico. So we had that that complexity to add to it. So when everything got ugly, and then we hit a brick wall in our cash flow, the company was starting to kind of unravel. Well, guess what? All of the thieves came back to me, and I was given a little bit more leeway and power because I was the trustworthy one. Again, it went back to my name. So, and in back of my head, maybe it was because I spent time in Japan too. I believed in karma. So I got to do the right thing. So I hit the right thing back, right? And that played a big role in it. So when they say there's no honor among thieves, well, that is so true. And that's where they searched out who can be fair and equitable in this split as the company was falling apart. And so my point to the audience is integrity can bring you an immense amount of power, especially in these times where a lot of people are unscrupulous, unethical, lack moral standards, fundamental principles. And this goes back into our original conversation of Hermeticism of, if I hurt you, Mark, I'm hurting myself. And that's kind of now my core belief. And maybe that originated from my unique last name.
Well, it's interesting. You know who Brent Freeman is, right? We talked about the utility, right? The utility of metaphor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we do a Pascal's soul? Like, does it need to be true that, like, can't we just pretend like if I hurt you, I hurt myself? Like that, it's kind of like the porcupine shooting the quills, right? Well, you know it doesn't happen, but the wives' tale is it'll get you 3 feet further back so that if it charges you, you have that extra 3 feet to react. That's really what that's for, right? To create a bigger gap from your reaction time. And we knew that. That's why we threw that in there, right? Like the metaphor of it's true. So why, versus the factuality? So we could play Pascal's. That's how we should play it anyway. This is the golden rule, isn't it? Like, it's literally Pascal's soul. I treat you better because I'm going to hurt myself if I don't.
Sure.
It's interesting. So
I
want to address one thing, Derek. Hold on, if I may, Derek, because for the people that come on, first of all, Derek, Jimmy, the people that come on, I'm beyond grateful that you're even spending time on a fucking Wednesday night sitting here watching two old people talk back and forth. So thank you for that. So like the least I could do is, if you're engaging, let's engage with you as well. So I will try my best to do this. But basically, this is interesting. We had our last name was German on my mom's side. It had 2 N's in it, and the Jewish way is 1 N. So my grandfather had pride in himself. So he had all the papers and everything. He had his name written out. So it wasn't like phonetic. Like a lot of times when people came, they said, "Who are you?" I'm like, whatever. And they're like, just write it down how it sounded phonetically to the guy taking you in if you didn't have papers. My grandfather had the fucking papers because like they were all about, to your point, I think the legacy, the names, the pride, the legacy that you're only as good as that. That's what you carry with you to the next thing, especially coming to a new country.
To answer Derek and the name change, that happened on my mother's side. I think the Irish name, that either the MC or the MAC got dropped. On my father's side, my last name, no, that we have that going all the way back to Germany to the 15th century. And it's dying. It's a name that is, it's just one of those things. Too many girls were born and fathered, and so the name got lost and shrunk.
Yeah. So once again, Derek going to the concert tomorrow. Brandon Lake, he is great. He was at Charlie Kirk's thing. We've never talked Charlie Kirk. I can tell you this. I'm just going to go on record. I don't care what YouTube has to say, but Tyler James Robinson did not kill Charlie Kirk. It's not, I don't need, do I know what happened? No, I can 100% tell you that's not a truth. So anyway, but that's an interesting thing. but I do have a conflict of interest with that. So like I've never talked with that about that. I'll talk with you offline about that. But it's something
Sure.
it's very hot coals for me because like I still need a job because I don't get this has never been monetized in the 6 years it's existence. Anyway, so Jimmy's saying there's a lot of that. There you go. Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. And
I did
Jimmy, I
not.
did read your thing about Judaism being a spiritual thing. It is my opinion that the Bible was written as a way to live a life, and it was a way to survive because it provided a lot of utility. The stories, to a point, I think was metaphor. It was metaphor to get you to, it's like what we were talking about, the porcupine shooting its quills and things like that. Jonah did not get eaten by a whale, and Job may have lost everything, but really the whole point was to persevere and do it because that's how life fucking is. No
Right.
offense, but that's kind of the lesson. Because even then, he doesn't even acknowledge God. He just says, gosh, I can't get out of this. Like, regardless, he doesn't actually submit. He says, I still have to do it regardless, because that's what life is. That's what like these lessons throughout the Bible, high utility, high value, a lot about community. But Old Testament, a little bit more utility on how to live, to survive, not as much about the spirituality part, but the ritual kept people together because ritual makes sense because humans work in patterns and things. So we could dissect that forever. It's not to belittle, not to reduce what the Bible was, but that's kind of my 50,000 foot.
Right.
It's my opinion. The Old Testament was written to have humans serve God, and Jesus came and said, wait, we're supposed to serve each other. It's a totally different, and I don't think Christians even look at that as a perspective, but that is actually how I perceive the New and Old Testament. And that's why I can't see them as the same God, because they aren't preaching the same lesson. They really aren't.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, the turn of the
I'm
cheek
sorry I went on a tangent.
It's a fork.
Yeah, I apologize for the tangent, but it's like it's not to criticize. Once again, like it's
Right.
my opinion. Okay, Russell Brand was a fucking addict. Okay, he spent 5 minutes not finding a verse of his in the Bible that he studied as an addict. Okay, that's when addicts find Christ. You know what I mean? Like, no offense to that, but I'd rather them be addicted to Jesus than like be addicted to some bad thing that could hurt someone else. So I'll accept, you know what I mean? I'll accept his over addiction to Jesus, because like it does less harm. It really does do better. It's a net better addiction than, it's like going to the gym's better than, taking steroids, for example.
Sure.
It's just a net better way to do it. Anyway, but go ahead, sir. I talk way too
no,
much. I'm gonna hit mute.
I think this, Hermeticism, I like the idea, it kind of encompasses the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative, that it's the idea of the masculine and the feminine. It really encompasses a lot, and because it's such an ancient thought or an ancient teaching, it seems to supersede a lot of what would be commonly construed as the New Testament and maybe even the Old Testament or parts of it. So I think there's, they say to go to the root and go for the source. Well, if you want to go to the root, say for Christianity, you really need to know Greek, and I haven't studied Greek. And
by the way, shout out to Zach. You know Zach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Zach. He's learning Latin.
Impressive.
Kudos, sir. So he can read the Bible. Like once again, I am impressed by his. I don't agree at all with the way that's done, but I love how he's doing that he's so into that. So I just want to applaud him for him doing that, if that makes sense, right?
No,
like
absolutely.
I don't need to believe in what you believe in to believe in you. Okay.
Sure.
So I believe in you, Zach, anyway. But
the last I'll say, I guess it really it's a harmonious way of looking at things. There's kind of a parable in Japan that, Mount Fuji, it's this nice cylinder volcano, right? And it basically, the parable goes like this: if you are diligent and climb on your side, of the mountain and I climb on my side of the mountain, and we're both diligent and we're both faithful in our climb, we'll both reach the top together, or we will see each other at the top. And so think of that as you believe in your thoughts and I'll believe in mine, and together we'll meet God someday.
Well, look at it this
and,
way. We
and
can
that's
look
a
at
very
we can look at it this way,
harmonious
that it's the destination versus the journey.
right.
Like it's like I can take a different route to get to the same place you are, as long as we get to that same place ultimately. It's
Right.
kind of what you're saying.
Japanese keko desu. Oh, thank you, or thank you, but no. But
Right.
you climb your mountain, I'll climb. We're climbing the same mountain. We're looking for
Right.
God. You just
Right.
climb your side, and I'll climb my
Yeah.
side. I'll let you climb however you want to climb, however you want to go about it. And if we're both diligent, we'll reach the top. We'll find God, and guess what?
That's
We'll
great.
find each other in God.
It's
very
what's that thing about evolution where it's synergistic, where it's comes to the same conclusion, but it took different paths to get there. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, I
for
do.
example, like I remember about it because we talk about it with like supercars. Supercars, you know, the intake and the aerodynamics, there's limits to everything. And it was like 4 different car manufacturers approached the car from 4 different ways, yet the supercar almost is identical at the end because of the restrictions kind of guide you to come to those evolutionary conclusions, even though you come from a different way. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is that we come to the same conclusion through different means. It's going to be at our speed through our way of understanding.
And there's
because you can't force these things.
Right. And like Dick says in the chat, you know, there's good and evil, of course. And so if again, it would go back to climb your side of the mountain, I'll climb my side of the mountain. And evil would be you're not diligent in your climb. You're falling downward. You're falling for the evilness. You're taking part in that evilness. So therefore you're not, ascending. You're not.
And diligent would be like not pulling down people who are above you, for example. You know what I mean? Like there's an interesting limitations where you have to think about that, right? Like it's like, oh wait, what if there's a climber? You can't affect them either. You just got to do it's your mountain to hit, or your side or whatever. In a weird way.
The evil would be a bunch of crabs in a bucket and pulling one crab just as he's getting ready to escape, pulling back down. So
pulling back down.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh no, I had this video that we could play. I could play the first minute about what you were talking about. Do you want to set this up a little bit, or whatever? You shared that with me.
I think let's just play it. We don't need to set it up.
All right. I'm going to remove it about halfway through. Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to remove about halfway through because that water thing at the end just didn't. It kind of took away from the core thing, but I didn't have a chance to edit. I've been lazy, man. I've been trying.
No worries.
All right, let's do this. That's hold on 1 second. It's funny because you are LDS. Sounds like a Latter-day Saint. Look at that. Or at least were one. Rabbi
yes, I was
one time. Devil just an excuse. That's a very interesting way to look at that. Temptation, not staying on a path, is actually evil, right? Like sin just means to miss the mark. It doesn't actually mean to do bad. It's an archery term, for goodness sakes. It's to miss your goal. Right. So to your point, if you're not diligent, guess what? You're not getting to your goal, right? It's the same exact. These are the same. It's to your point. All these interesting axioms and things, even through religion or just wisdom or things like that. They're all universal because they're human.
Can I speak to that one comment about that's like Latter-day Saints in the mountain?
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, actually, that was someone who I'd first heard it from someone who believes in Shinto, which is the truly the religion in Japan. Most people think it's Buddhism, but Shinto was there before Buddhism, and it came from someone who believed in Shinto. The idea of climbing Mount Fuji. The Mormon thought is that there are essentially multiple kingdoms, and essentially based upon the life that you live, you will be rewarded justly. So if you are a faithful and diligent Mormon climbing the Mormon mountain, then you might reach celestial glory. And if you are you're still a good person, but maybe you rejected Mormonism, but you still believed in Jesus.
Wait, there's
Christ.
levels of heaven? So it's basically
Yes.
Dante's, and it's Dante's Inferno, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so that the latter.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I was not aware at all. For all I know about it.
There's a verse in the New Testament says, in my Father's kingdom there are many mansions, and mansions has been defined.
So they took it literally.
Yes. Anyway, I'm sorry. I wanted to mention that.
No worries.
That there was.
I like it. That's a good point.
Oh yeah, let's hear. Is this the video I had sent you? Right?
Yeah, this is the one you sent me. Just a little short. Everyone else, take a listen.
She's a physicist.
We're going to talk about the Hermeticism and how this says. Yeah, go ahead. Did you want to set it up? How you come across it? Because I even saw your comment. Who is this person? And
I don't know who she is. I had seen it maybe 6 months ago, and I go, wow, that was fascinating. And it's one of those things, you just happen to see it on your phone and you go, oh, wow, I got to go back to this. And then I lost it. And then it popped up again. And I thought of our conversation that we were going to have in a few weeks. And I go, oh, I got to remember this one. And I had saved it to myself so I could send it. But months ago, I'd heard that she was a physicist. I don't know if that's true or not. And that's why I had asked, who is this woman? I wanted to find out who she was. And I looked on Library, Rumble, and YouTube, and BitChute.
There are plenty of physicists talking about consciousness like this. A lot of them are on Diary of a CEO and on Chris Williamson and all this other stuff. Be careful though, because I think there's a lot of psyops going on in those little podcasts. But whatever, they don't know it. Trust me, I don't think DOAC, I don't think Bartlett or Williamson really know that they're getting like basically used for these things. But it's interesting to watch, and I'm like, Harari? You got Harari on there, huh? Useless Eaters, right? Oh yeah, you're promoting Harari. All right, Useless Eaters, right? Okay, sure. And it's not their fault. Like it's like I would talk to anybody personally, but remember the mirror thing? I challenge everyone. This is why I sit alone in my office right there with nothing behind me. So I'm not a lonely person. I just am very solitary.
Right. You enjoy your solitude, as I do.
So let me share this one. This is very interesting. I will shut up now. I'll play this. Everyone take a listen to this. Very interesting from this young lady talking about kind of what we're talking about, how it's connected or what's going on.
Energy and nothing is separate. And then when you realize that they can measure your brain waves with a magnet that doesn't touch your head, you realize that your thoughts are not in your head. And they're part of this greater field that we are all connected by. And they're now trying to understand how we actually store memories, which is a developing process. Some of it is protein-based, and some of it is this theory that we basically store our thoughts in the cloud. So basically, you're accessing your own Wi-Fi field. And this is why there is a difference of like meeting somebody in person versus doing something over Zoom. Our biofields are interacting right now. There are low-level frequencies that our brains interact on. So having that biofield, you realize that like you have your own biofield. You are your own Wi-Fi. You emit your own Wi-Fi. And so then thoughts can be the process of some of that Wi-Fi coming in, mostly directed as life force and energy, which is why like how you practice your energy and how you maintain your energy can really direct how your thoughts come out in your reality, because it's that life force that then drives a chemical change in the brain that then drives forth whatever is going to come out as like a conscious thought or a verbal thought or anything like that. But when you realize that it's the energy that comes first, this is why stuff like meditation could lead to manifestation, because you have to correct that frequency signal and then it'll actually correct your physiology. And I literally went through my own.
Yeah. All right. So to your point, the manifestation, but once again, I don't think she's created, she aligned with it.
Yes.
I think it's still backwards. I don't think you control it, but you have to surrender. Like you can't make it happen, to be honest. You can only allow it to manifest. I think. And I think when you consciously get in it, you actually interfere with its manifestation.
Do you often
Yeah, good.
think of, wow, I kind of screwed this up. Well, maybe in the next life I'll get it right.
Every second. What time is it? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much there, my friend.
So then you have to ask yourself, well, why are you having this thought? Is it a form of regret, and you're trying to find closure in a bad decision, and you regret that, so you find closure and say, well,
It is a coping mechanism. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
great way to cope. Is look, we're human. I got to learn my lesson next time, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
honestly,
So
how do you rape? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's just go
Okay.
right there. How do you grape children and
Mm.
and live with yourself? How do you bomb countries without becoming an alcoholic, Pete? How do you, you know what I mean? How do you cope with all these things if you can't use coping mechanisms like that? Doesn't mean it's true. It's just that's how humans cope too. If
Sure.
that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Uh,
Maybe in my next life I won't be a child rapist.
well,
William, maybe
yeah.
not, you know.
Well, there's ways I think you can measure IQ, and you can measure EQ, and measure how much empathy a person has. So where do they line up on the borderline personality scale?
It's not always sad and tragic, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Sure.
This
So I
frequency
think
connection.
I think that has a lot to do with that empathy level. And look at, come on, government at the upper level certainly attracts the sociopaths.
It's literally
magnet.
it's designed for those people. It's designed to protect. It's built. The architecture's built to protect sociopathy.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
They built it for
right. Like literally, I've watched Massey talk about it. There's a left and a right chamber. That is it. So you're binary. You're already binary. There's no third place to go. There's not even a third place, fourth place. No, there's two. You're in that room. You're in that room. If you're in neither room, you're not in it. You're just not in it. So just by him being not in either of the two rooms, he's already on the way. He's already on the out. There, you're already on the out. You're already built to fail, and it only protects that sociopathy in more and more. It just builds inside. But so when I watch this woman, I got this thing. So this is, remember, we were talking about subconscious. So I'll give you a personal experience. What happened? I have precognitive visions. I'm in Arizona. I'm on the 10 and I'm driving. And you know how like you're in a zone, white stripes, you're on the highway. It's not crowded. So you're kind of like, just kind of in the flow. You know how you get to work and you're like, how did I get here? But you got there. You did turn the signals. You were looking out for traffic, but you just weren't really paying attention to how you got there, right? So I'm in a zone. I'm in the furthest lane over, except there's an HOV, high occupancy vehicle lane, over to my side. It's the weekend, so it's not crowded. So I'm not over in the HOV lane. It's not active or anything, but it's like there's the slightest drizzle. Now we can talk pattern recognition, whatever, but this is how I'm getting this thing. So I'm driving and I'm with my girlfriend and I look in the side view mirror and there's a pickup truck accelerating, coming faster than me. I'm going 10 over, going faster than me in the rain, in this little drizzle. And I get danger, like literal, I like danger. And it's not just the general anxiety of like, wait a minute, that guy's going, but it was like someone hit a button, like a controller, like what to think, like danger. You know what I mean? Like on a controller. And then I see him go by and I say something to my girlfriend. I go, that guy's going to be trouble. And I don't know why I said that, whatever. But we come up on a slow bend and all of a sudden I get another one of these weird inputs, kind of like I let off the gas and I put my right turn signal on and I move over a lane and I slow down 8 miles, 10 miles an hour. I just go back to speed. And I go, and I saw the pickup truck coming across our lane. I got a flash of that. And I said, there's an accident. I just said I don't know. I just said it to her, but it was not internal. It was not internal. It was all like this weird controller. Around the bend, there was already an accident ahead. And the pickup truck wouldn't even have been involved, locked up his brakes, came across 3 lanes and got in the accident. And literally, I come up to the thing and we just slow down to a stop where the accident is. I look at her, I go, "Are you okay?" But it was like I was not in a zone. I was like in the zone. I wasn't me.
Right.
It was completely outside of my body that was instructing me what to do. And that was a weird experience for me, but I know that was not a normal way to experience that, you know?
X-Files. I'm sure X-Files did an episode on that. Remember that show?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. They're out there, Scully. No. There's got to be an explanation for it, and the only thing I can come to is that, again, it's one mind. And every once
Or it could be, and it could be pattern. I mean, it could just be pattern recognition. I saw the guy was speeding, but it's like I saw all of it happen. And I've had, like I said, I've had visions that come true. So it's like they're haunting. They're haunting. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, man. Well, look, we're an hour and a half in. What else we got before we call it, my friend?
I would like, I guess maybe. When we were on If by Whiskey and we talked about AI and gave a lot of doom scenarios, or potential doom scenarios, and this has been a very unique conversation. I haven't had a conversation like this online with anybody out there, putting it out there.
I tend to do that. I have that ability for some
reason. And I appreciate it. The last thing I'd like to say is just maybe pay attention to your dreams. Is what I would encourage people to do. Not that the dreams are going to foretell the future, but they are possibly, something that's telling you that's unresolved or not completed in your life, or something that's pressing that you probably should do. Think that, and you'll find more peace if you have that dream and you think it through, and follow through with what you dreamt about. As well as, I encourage people to start learning about maybe lucid dreaming. That I should say, I'm now retired, but it was very valuable to me at different times in my life when I was facing some very difficult problem solving. And lastly, I would say, Mark, interpret this for me. I have dreamt nearly every president's vice president pick. Not that I got it right, but like I'm in the car with them having a conversation. Well, I think you should pick so and so.
Can you say this one more time?
Yeah.
What a unique skill.
No, I don't get it right. It's not a skill at all. I will dream of very famous people, and usually political figures, and having conversations with them and providing political advice. I don't know. Maybe I'm narcissistic, egotistical to some degree. It goes way back to, I remember having a dream that George H. Bush should have picked Jack Kemp to be his running mate, and telling him, pick Jack Kemp. Don't pick anybody else, pick Jack Kemp. And I was sitting in the vice president's limo having this conversation with him. And I do this all the time. I had a crazy dream. Well, why do I have these dreams? I don't know. I dreamt
that's interesting. I think it's because you just collect a lot of information. Then I think dreams are multiple things. I think dreams, when you're in this state, you're open to accepting more signals too. So if you're susceptible to accepting signals, you're more susceptible. You're more than normal. So if you're nothing, then you might have a little. If you're little, you have more. So I could see that as one method. But the second is your processor's going. You've taken in a whole day's worth of information at 3x speed, right? Through podcasts and everything. And now you got to figure this other shit out in your head. And it's just a way of working it out too. Like it's a little bit of both.
So who is it? What is it with people if they dream about famous people and having conversations with famous people all the time? Yeah. I had a wrong number.
Hold on one second here. If I may do this,
why?
I'm just real quick. I'm sorry for your loss, Derek.
Oh,
I'd like to hear about that, Derek. We'll have to talk about that. We'll have to delve into that sometime. But
for sure.
You had high tea with the King of England. Is that what you said?
The Queen of England dialed my number by accident in a dream, and we had a conversation. Oh, so what's it like over there in America right now? What are people thinking? What are people saying? And I was just having a general conversation with the Queen of England because she dialed my phone number by mistake. It's crazy. I don't know why I dream things. Though.
Here's the dream, if I may. Okay, so I have a double dream that's connected. That's fucking nuts. Okay. I don't talk about. I have not really talked about this one because I just don't like talking about like this stuff. But I had a dream that my girlfriend was driving my car and there was an accident, head-on collision, like half head-on. So I saw what I saw. I wake up at night. I'm freaking out because she's going on a trip with her mom the next morning, and she's planning to take the car that I saw in the vision. So all morning I'm freaking out about this. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I've never felt such an intense feeling. I got her to take her mom's car. I'm like, I guess that's the best I could do, is like, if the vision was in this car. Now I don't think that's how it works, but if it was and it was in this car, at least that changes a variable, right? Like,
right,
it changes some variable in some way. Whatever. So that's not the crazy part. I get a text from my first co-host of Not Conscious and Beer Googles, Chris. You might have seen him on a previous podcast. He texts me and goes, "Is everything okay?" And I knew exactly what he meant. I called him and I said, Did you see Meg? Did you see her? Did you see what I saw?" And he goes, "No, I got a text from you. I got a dream that I got a text from you that it happened."
Oh, wow.
What the?
Yeah.
I never, ever.
Yeah.
He dreamed that I texted him of the dream that I experienced in the same night. And I don't know if that's not a connection. There's just no way that, like, I dreamt that you texted me that you had an experience that you happened to dream the same. Like, what?
How can you explain that? I don't have an answer for it.
I don't either, man. And then that's the beauty thing, though. And this is the thing. You and I are still curious. These mouth breathing knuckle draggers either want to be so sure that it's this, that, or the other, that it's like, to your point, like, we're agnostic, not because we know, but because we don't know.
Right.
And because we don't know, we're actually certain in the unknowing, and they're uncertain in their knowing. And I don't mean that in a critical way. That's how humanity is. You know what I mean?
I couldn't have said it better. I was thinking the exact same thing as you were saying it, especially in the realm of politics. People come to their own conclusions. They get their information from different sources, different than ours, maybe. And, it kind of goes back to when you know, you know. Or if you don't know, you don't know. And ignorance is bliss in many regards. So I feel we've never touched on that part of it, but I feel like I've seen a lot of things from the inside out, and wished I had never experienced those things, i.e. politics.
You say that, but you would have thought it. You would have thought it. Don't lie. We're seekers, man. It's different. We say we're burdened with that, but like, we would have still turned into the iceberg. We still would have looked underneath the rock. We still, you know what I mean? That's just what we can't not, man. We just can't not be it.
And so that's how I became an agorist, which is, like I said, an anarchist, was my time at the state capitol, lobbying for a cause and seeing how we worked out a deal, how that happens, seeing how the sausage is made. And that's when I realized that there is no political solution, years and years ago. Then the second point is my Mormon experience. I felt like I used to describe it this way. Imagine there's a television evangelist and you're the cameraman. All right. You're behind the camera and it's a live Sunday show that's getting ready to go live. And you see the minister arguing and yelling and screaming and cussing at people about something that's going on, you know, maybe financially or whatever with the ministry. And you're going 5, 4, 3. Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm glad you were able to join us in this wonderful Sunday Sabbath, blah, blah, blah. You know, you saw behind the scenes who this monster really was before the camera turned on. And that's
funny you said that, literally, because I watched Bill O'Reilly on Piers Morgan earlier today. And did you know, I don't know if you ever heard this, allegedly, Bill O'Reilly got a 1600 on his SAT. That's an alleged fact. I am not joking. Allegedly, he's some freaking genius. I haven't seen it, but allegedly he is. Anyway, he's on Piers Morgan, and it makes me think of that. Remember that time when he's on Current Affair? Fuck it, we'll do it live. Yeah. And he just that is him. Chris Berman behind the scenes. No, he's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit. And that, you know, it's authenticity. And that's something that definitely whatever I got is vibes. I'll shake someone's hand and I'll know if you're real or not. I know. Let me put it this way. I know, and this is where I get burned bridges with our libertarian friends. I know that Chase Oliver is not an authentic person. He is not a real, he and Mike Termat are complete, absolute, disgusting slime balls. And I can't explain the vibes, but I just shaking their hand and introducing myself to them. And now they refused to do a podcast with me because I asked some questions that they knew that could lead to very bad problems for them. But I wasn't unkind about it, but I could sense. And when I watch our friends drool over this psychopath, this sociopath, who, by the way, told us all to wear masks, by the way. Does anyone remember Chase telling us to wear masks? And this is where I get upset, because I went from neocon to libertarian. And Mike Rechtenwald, Dr. Rechtenwald is demonic in he's got his own fucking demons, but that's kind of the demon we need. Like, it's like a weird, like, I know that. I know what Mike Rechtenwald is. It's the other guys who aren't authentically who they are. Like, yes. I know who Mike Rechtenwald is, so I can follow that. You know what I mean? Because I can stop him where I know it's going to, like, no, you're not going to go there because that's a limit. You know what I mean? Like, but not with these sociopaths who slime their way in. And you know what I'm saying? So when I saw that, when that happened, it was that election. It was in one election cycle. I went from neocon to like nothing. To your point, is like, how do our friends not see that and just completely swing? Because that you saw what humanity did in that LNC during that vote. It was like the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Watching that unfold was utter madness to me, utter madness. And it felt like it was intentional. It felt intentional and inauthentic in so many ways. So just your thoughts on that. Just authenticity, I guess, is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're manipulated, you know, Project Mockingbird, right? By the intelligence community has been doing this for decades. So, and people are manipulated, not even knowing they're being manipulated, not even knowing that they're the manipulator. So, it's an ugly world, and parsing and finding truth is certainly a lifelong pursuit, right? And now, recently, I guess more and more, I'm going to try to, you know, soften up or start exercising that part of the brain that I put on way back in I guess in the deep freeze, you know, of trying to find more answers as to this oneness, if you will. So, which I'm going to be looking for authentic sources, and this is why I went further back to the original source. The oldest source I could find was Hermeticism. That's why.
And you know what? Oneness doesn't require a hierarchy per se. It might be hierarchical in time or in
Mm-hmm.
another dimension, but it doesn't need to necessarily be hierarchical. So like you can have this feeling of oneness without a top of the oneness. I mean, the whole point of oneness is one,
Right.
one, like in a weird way. It it's hard. It's hard to really wrap your head around that with a hierarchy, considering hierarchy works in familial, obviously in survival from family, you know, father, mother, child. So it's just beautiful. So tomorrow night, once again, William, you are going to be okay. So everyone who's watching right now, William, once again, thank you for joining us on Knocked
Thank you.
Conscious. freedomuncut.com. freedomuncut.com. You can go. That is Are You Smarter Than a Politician tomorrow night, 8 p.m. live. William is going against Lars Mapstead and another gentleman. I forget his name. I apologize for that, but he's a Bitcoin genius. But Lars Mapstead was a presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, so, or at least ran to be president. So he's a very, very smart man. Marco Rubio, yes. No, we don't have Marco Rubio. He
nobody
couldn't climb up into the chair. He's not tall enough to fit in our chairs. But no, yeah. So anyway, that's that. So Freedom Uncut. Now, if you're really bold, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there, I was on 3 of the previous Are You Smarter Than a Politician? I came in second twice, but I won the last one. So I just want to let you know.
Retire
if you guys
on
want
top.
to catch up. And I retired on top. I was like, I'm out. And thank goodness for a nuke. It was a nuke that took some guy out early. I was like, good. All right, we're good. No, but great time. It's fun. You're gonna have so much fun with it. William, how else can we get a hold of you? And what else should we go?
You can follow me on X at I am for I am we. And by the way, I am for I am is nothing like from a biblical standpoint. You know, it's I am because of my name William and my wife's name is Miriam. So we both
nice.
both end in I am. So it's I am for her as she is in for me, and together we are.
I love that.
So that's where the I am
for Eam is what it is. Actually, it's not I am. It's Eam for Eam.
Yeah, but I like to say I am for I am.
I love it. I like it.
So anyway, that's where
I am what I am because that's all I can be.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, that's where that comes from. It's nothing.
Kurt Russell, that would be great. I'd love to get Kurt Russell on there.
Oh boy.
Actually, let me pull it up. Hold on, since I got the chat up. Let's see. We're breaking free. All right, we've got Lars Mapstead and the guy
Jose Venezuela.
Oh, Joel Venezuela.
Joel Venezuela. Yeah, he's
you nailed it. See?
Yeah, he's we're going to talk a lot about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and that's kind of where the topic is going. Of course, I'm going to come from certainly an agorist or anarchy perspective, because I loathe the government, because I distrust the government.
Be expressively distrustful of the express these things. You don't have to use a lot of words. Just express it in concentration and word choice, because everyone loves that. Everyone loves pissing on that in that show. So you'll do fine.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the tip, Mark. I'm going to go watch your previous, at 3x speed, your previous show. So I'm going to take notes at 1.5x speed. So at least I can get half of the information down.
I'll admit I didn't do very well. I was very quiet because I was trying to be very respectful to the time, so I didn't want to step on anybody. But I talk a lot, so I tried not to talk too much on the game show. But.
As do I.
All right, William. It's been a great time, man. Thank you again.
Likewise.
This has been great. Like, obviously, we touched on some things, but we talked about so many different things, but there's never an answer. That's what the beauty of this is. And I will play in a sandbox all day. Let's play in these mental sandboxes, because we need stimulation, man. We need to start learning how to think again, because nobody's doing that. I mean, I'm sick of, before I go, I just have to, I can't.
Okay.
I got an email from someone who is trying to sell me on AI. I think I gave you that guy's name. I think I sent you his name. But the email was sent via AI, and it's so explicitly AI, it makes me upset, because this guy is white pilled on AI, and I'm like, you can't even get an email right, and you're coming to me with the future of AI. Like, this is what it was. Literally, hi, I liked your episode of Knocked Conscious. It was a If by Whiskey, by the way, where you, Jake, and blah, blah, blah talked about it was only two of us because Jake wasn't able to make it. I think it was actually the last time you and I talked. And it was like, you don't even know what you said. You didn't watch it clearly. Because like if you watched it, you wouldn't have written any of that. You copied the details of the podcast note and put in your AI and plugged it back at me, and it reeks of inauthenticity. Yeah. I have not responded to so many people who are trying to stream their workflow do not get a response from me, because that's not connection. That's not authentic. Connection takes time. It's a recipe. It's baking. It's molding. It's like, you know what I mean? You don't build flavors in 3 minutes. You gotta, marinate and season. And anyway, your thoughts on that, on that before we go, like just using
it was
AI,
an AI agent
cheaply.
And I'd be a little bit more forgiving for this individual who's reaching out to try to get their message out. He certainly seems to have some credibility. He's just having an AI agent trying to contact you.
Yeah. I agree. I appreciate the grace. No, I obviously this is me yelling, get off my lawn. This is us with the change that we can't handle. Obviously, William. This is where we're at. So, all right. Well, okay. Well, Derek, thank you. I would also like this channel to grow. I've done 250 of these. I would also like this. It would be nice to have more. If hold on. We are at. Let me look at the good old YouTube. Okay. Knocked Conscious on YouTube. The Knocked Conscious channel has 193 subscribers after 250 episodes in 6 years. If you can get me to 200, maybe I'll be happy or something. I have no idea. But like, this is the funny thing is it's the
you got the wrong person. You got the wrong guy. I got a name that's dying in a small family. I can't help it.
No, but this is the point though, is like, this is not what this is about, even though I'd love for this to happen, to grow, but it really is just about the exchange of ideas and getting to meet unique people. So thank you, William. Derek, great meeting you. Jimmy, thank you for being there. I'm going to look up your last name. I believe you put it in the thing. I don't want to say it, even though you doxed yourself. I don't want to dox you. So everyone, guys, this has been another If by Whiskey. William, stick around the back end of this. We're going to play the outro. It's Jason again. I have to play it. I had to put on both ends of this because it's just so good. Everyone else, next, gosh darn it, the 6th May 6th, Wednesday, Dominic Scarcella is going to be, it's good citizen, bad neighbor, good neighbor, bad citizen. I think it's good neighbor, bad citizen. It's interesting. We'll talk about it. And then the 13th, our last If by Whiskey, Natalie Morris of Redacted will be back on with us. So that we're going to go out with a bang. That should be a good one. So I'm going to be really pushing for that. But Derek, thank you again.
I'm saddened you're gonna archive it for a while, but I understand.
No, well, this is the thing. I'm not though. I do want to continue a weekly podcast. I don't know what it is, but something's well, I'll be honest. I'm just going to say it. Jason, there's something about Jason that I know. Like, you want to talk vibe, like flow, something. Jason is very special, and he will be special again, but he's just doing something else now. Sure. So he'll get back to it, but he's not doing it now. But the problem is, it has nothing to do with any other thing. I think losing Jason just literally took the legs out, and I don't know what it was energetically, but I'm happy to admit that Jason was I felt that Jason was the linchpin of If by Whiskey as a whole. And I'm glad to have been a part of it. And I'm glad Jake was able to be a part of it. Jake and I did it for 6 months. Like, I didn't even think about that. That means that we did 25 episodes, probably 25. I mean, it's crazy. So thank you again to everyone for joining us. Knocked Conscious, it is, everyone. Next Wednesday, the 6th, and then the 13th, and then I hope the 20th we'll have this AI guy on, but I haven't even gotten them back yet. So we'll talk about something. We'll talk about all this other stuff. Stick around, William. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Knocked Conscious. Take care.